remembered that from Apocalypse Now, with those helicopters going over and shooting napalm at the Vietnamese. But I think it would be equally, and maybe better, describe not American helicopters, but German Second World War bombers. And because, I mean, for example, Wagner, who wrote it, he was a favourite of the Nazis, and I know a little bit about it, a bit close to home for me, because well, I'll come into that in a minute, but I made a full-scale, full-size German bomber, a Dornier bomber here. I made it out of a lot of family photographs, and it's hanging in the studio here, full size. This is in 2011. I had this show, and let's look at a close-up of it, of that. Here it is, and I had it hanging on bed sheets in our house on the front garden. We normally wouldn't have it, but apparently there were bed sheets hanging out, and because the back garden was used for Dig for Victory, digging vegetables, growing vegetables, and so they had bed sheets lying there and hanging out in the front drying, all sorts of clothes and things. But so I've pinned the photographs onto these bed sheets, and there's a pram just there in the front there. You may be able to guess what I'm about to say. Anyway, around these round things here, the engines. By the way, BMW wouldn't give me any money for this exhibition, but they did have BMW engines, those Dorniers. Photographs of all the sculptures and artworks I've made over the years. They're sort of driving the whole thing. And then there's a photograph here of me as a kid, as a baby. I was about 5 or something like that when I first went to school. There's sort of photographs you have taken in this place you went to, and you can see here that the whole thing is pinned together with safety pins. I use safety pins pinning all the photographs in the collage onto the bed sheets. And in the centre, there's a photograph. The oldest photograph is my grandmother when she was young. She's on the right. And on the left was the newest photograph. I just slopped that in just before, to complete the piece actually, the day my grandchild was born. There's Iris in the hospital with her mother, my older daughter, and my son-in-law. So those get the alpha and omega, I guess, as that is the beginning and the end. February 1944, I was the few months old baby in that pram, and what happened was that my grandmother heard early one morning heard some rat-a-tat-tat, and she thought that doesn't sound like a British plane, and she ran out to the front door. And at 50 feet above, just above the trees, there's a big German Dornier bomber flying along and machine gunning everything in sight. And she got hold of the pram and pulled it up the front steps to avoid the bullet holes, the bullets. And in fact, you can still see the bullet holes down the side of the house where we lived at the time. And I've incorporated that as one or two other photographs in this collage. So the whole thing really is a sort of like a, that's why I've got a sort of alpha omega, it's a sort of like a visual autobiography. And a lot of those events, and certainly me, and some other people, like my offspring, wouldn't have existed if she hadn't been pulled that pram up those steps in the nick of time. And that's why I've just called the piece Grandmother.